My parents gave my sister $80,000 for her wedding and told me, "You don't deserve any help." So I cut all contact and continued with my life. 2 years later, my sister passed by my 5 million house and called my mother, crying. Why does she have that? I never thought I'd be writing this, but recent events have pushed me to finally share what happened between me and my family. This is long, so grab some coffee. Growing up, I always knew Madison was the favorite. She was 3 years older, blonde, bubbly, and everything my parents wanted in a daughter. I was the quiet one, the bookworm with frizzy brown hair who preferred coding tutorials to cheerleading practice. My father, Robert, owned a moderately successful car dealership, and my mother, Patricia, had never worked a day in her life. They weren't wealthy, but comfortable enough to spoil one child completely while treating the other like an afterthought. Madison got a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. I got a bus pass and a lecture about responsibility when I turned 16. She went to state college and lived in a sorority house fully funded by our parents. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through community college before transferring to a university 2 hours away. The pattern was clear, but I told myself it would change someday. Maybe when I proved myself, they'd see my worth. How naive I was. 5 years ago, Madison got engaged to her boyfriend Brett, a middle manager at a logistics company. The wedding planning began immediately, and it was all my mother could talk about. Every Sunday dinner became a 3-hour discussion about flower arrangements, venue options, and dress fittings. I sat there, fork pushing food around my plate, invisible as always. Then came the announcement that changed everything. We were at my parents' house, and Madison was going through her wedding budget with Mom and Dad. I was only half listening until I heard the number, $80,000. My head snapped up so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. "Wait, what?" I asked, surely having this heard. My father didn't even look at me. "We're giving your sister $80,000 for the wedding. It's what she deserves for finding such a good man." I felt like the room had tilted sideways. $80,000. I'd scraped by on ramen noodles and worked overnight shifts at a grocery store to afford textbooks. I graduated with $43,000 in student loans that I was still paying off, and they were just handing Madison enough money to buy a house. That's a lot of money, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Madison beamed. "I know, right? We're thinking of having it at the Riverside Estate. It's going to be absolutely perfect." I turned to my parents, something desperate clawing its way up my throat. "Do you think? I mean, I'm still paying off my student loans, and if there's money available, maybe I could get some help with no." My mother's voice cut through my sentence like a knife. She didn't even let me finish. "You made your choices, Muriel. You chose that expensive university instead of staying local. You chose to study computer science instead of something practical." "Computer science isn't practical?" I asked, bewildered. My father finally looked at me, and the disappointment in his eyes was nothing new, but it still stung. "Your sister is building a life, starting a family. She needs support. You're just thinking about yourself as usual." The air left my lungs. "I'm thinking about myself. I worked 3 jobs while Madison partied through college on your dime." "That's enough," my father said, his voice rising. "Your sister knows how to appreciate what she's given. She's always been grateful, always been the daughter we could be proud of. And I'm not." The question came out broken, years of rejection finally crystallizing into words. My mother sighed like I was exhausting her. "Muriel, you don't deserve any help. You've never appreciated what we've done for you. You've always been difficult, always been distant. Madison includes us in her life. When was the last time you called just to chat?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "When was the last time you answered when I did call?" Nobody responded. Madison looked uncomfortable for maybe half a second before returning to her seating chart. I grabbed my purse and walked out. As I reached my car, I heard my mother call out, "You're being dramatic, Muriel. Come back and apologize." I didn't go back. I drove to my tiny apartment, sat on my secondhand couch, and made a decision. If I didn't deserve their help, fine. I didn't need their anything. The life I built would be mine alone, and it would be spectacular. The next morning, I blocked their numbers. All of them. I deleted Facebook, Instagram, every connection we had. My coworker, Emma, thought I was crazy when I told her what happened. "You're cutting off your entire family over money?" she asked during our lunch break. It's not about the money, I tried to explain. It's about them telling me to my face that I'm worthless to them, that I don't deserve basic help while they fund my sister's fairy tale. Emma squeezed my hand, then show them what you're worth, and that's exactly what I did. The first few weeks were harder than I expected. I'd find myself reaching for my phone to call my mom about something trivial, a funny thing that happened at work, a recipe question, the kind of mindless check-ins that daughters do. Then I'd remember and feel the loss all over again. It wasn't that I missed them exactly. I missed the idea of them, the fantasy of parents who actually cared. My apartment felt different somehow, smaller and quieter. I'd come home from work and sit in the silence, realizing that for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. No safety net, no backup plan, no family to fall back on if things went wrong. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Chen, during this time. Emma had recommended her, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. In our third session, I broke down completely. I keep thinking I'm overreacting. I sobbed into a tissue. Maybe I should just apologize and go back. Maybe having a family, even a bad one, is better than having no one. Dr. Chen leaned forward in her chair. Muriel, you didn't cause this break. You simply stopped accepting unacceptable treatment. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Right now, you're alone by choice, because being with them made you feel lonelier than being by yourself. Her words hit me like a revelation. She was right. I felt more alone, sitting at that dinner table, invisible and dismissed, than I ever did in my empty apartment. What they did was emotional abuse, Dr. Chen continued gently. Favoritism to this extreme, the constant comparisons, the withholding of support while lavishing it on your sister, these are forms of psychological harm. You're not overreacting. You're protecting yourself. Over the following months, therapy helped me unpack 30 years of damage. I started recognizing patterns I'd never noticed before. How my mother would praise Madison for the smallest accomplishments, but never acknowledge my achievements, no matter how significant. How my father would light up when Madison entered a room, but barely glance up from his newspaper when I came home. How family photos were carefully curated to feature Madison prominently, while I was often cropped out or relegated to the edges. I remembered my high school graduation, where I graduated with honors and a full scholarship to community college. My parents had shown up late, missed my name being called, and left early because Madison had a hair appointment. When I gotten upset, my mother had said, "Don't be so sensitive, Muriel. It's just a graduation. Madison's prom is next week, and that's much more important." Dr. Chen asked me to bring in photos from my childhood. Looking through them with her, I saw things I blocked out. In every single picture, Madison was smiling, vibrant, the center of attention. I was always slightly out of focus, my smile uncertain, my body language screaming discomfort. In one particularly painful photo from Madison's Sweet 16, I was literally standing outside the frame, partially cut off, while Madison posed with our parents like they were the perfect family of 3. "This must have been so painful to live through," Dr. Chen said softly, examining the photos. "I just thought it was normal," I admitted. "I thought maybe I deserved it somehow, like there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made me unlovable." "There's nothing wrong with you, Muriel. There was something very wrong with how you were treated." Armed with this new understanding, I channeled my pain into productivity. Therapy gave me clarity, and clarity gave me focus. Every session, where I unpacked another layer of dysfunction, became fuel for my determination to succeed. I threw myself into my work at the tech startup where I'd been employed for 2 years. I was a junior developer, but I had ideas, big ones. I'd been working on a project in my spare time, a piece of software that could revolutionize inventory management for small to medium businesses. It used machine learning to predict stock needs based on dozens of variables, reducing waste and increasing efficiency. The software had started as a class project during my final year of university. My professor, Dr. Alan Martinez, had pulled me aside after I presented it. "Muriel, this is exceptional work. Have you considered developing this further? This could be commercially viable." At the time, I'd been too focused on just surviving, working my overnight shift, studying during every spare moment, living on 4 hours of sleep to seriously consider it. But I kept the code tucked away in a folder on my laptop, a seed waiting for the right conditions to grow. Now, with my family's rejection ringing in my ears and Dr. Chen's encouragement to channel my energy productively, I pulled out that old project. I spent every evening and weekend refining it, expanding it, making it better. My tiny apartment became mission control. I set up a workstation in my bedroom, bought a second monitor with money from my tax refund, and worked until my eyes burned and my fingers cramped. The original concept was solid, but I realized it needed more. I incorporated predictive analytics for seasonal trends, integrated it with multiple point-of-sale systems, and added a user-friendly dashboard that even the least tech-savvy business owner could navigate. I beta tested it with 3 small businesses, including the corner store where I'd worked during college. The owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, called me after the first month. "Muriel, this thing you made, it's incredible. I haven't had to throw out expired product in weeks. My orders are perfect. You need to sell this." Her words were the validation I needed. While Madison was presumably enjoying her lavish wedding, I wouldn't know. I wasn't invited. Not that I would have gone. I was building something that mattered. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by coffee and the burning knee to prove something to myself. Emma would bring me dinner sometimes, finding me still coding at midnight. "You're going to burn out," she warned one evening, watching me debug a particularly frustrating section of code. "I can't stop now," I told her, not looking away from my screen. "This is it, Emma. This is my shot." Marcus, my boss at the startup, noticed my exhaustion one morning when I nearly fell asleep in a meeting. He pulled me aside afterward. "Muriel, you look terrible. What's going on?" I almost brushed him off, but something made me honest. I've been working on a side project, inventory management software using machine learning. "I think it could be something big." His eyes widened. "Show me." 6 months after cutting contact with my family, I pitched my software to Marcus in the company's small conference room. My hands shook as I set up my laptop, connected it to the projector, and walked him through every feature. I showed him the beta results, the user feedback, the market research I'd done on competitors. I'd prepared for every possible question, every objection, every doubt. Marcus watched in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and exhaled slowly. "This is brilliant, Muriel. Genuinely brilliant." My heart hammered against my ribs. "So, what do you think?" "I think," he said, leaning forward with a grin, "that we need to develop this into a full product. And I think you need to be a partner in this company, not just an employee." I couldn't breathe. "What?" You heard me. "This kind of innovation, this kind of initiative, that's partnership material. We'll develop it under the company umbrella, and you'll get equity, profit sharing, the works. But Muriel, this stays between us until we're ready to launch. This is going to be our flagship product." I wanted to call someone to share the news, to scream my excitement into the phone. Then I realized there was no one to call. My family was gone, and the friends I'd had growing up had all been Madison's friends first. But Emma was there that evening, and when I told her, she screamed loud enough for both of us. "You did it!" she squealed, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "You actually did it!" Within 3 months, we developed my software into a polished, market-ready product. Marcus brought in developers to help scale it, but I remained the lead architect, the one who understood its bones and blood. We named it Inventory IQ, and our first major client was a chain of 30 sporting goods stores across the Midwest. They reported a 47% reduction in waste within the first quarter. The testimonials started rolling in. Business magazines wrote about us. Within 6 months, we had our first major national retail chain, with over 200 locations wanting to implement Inventory IQ across their entire network. The contract was worth $3.2 million. I sat in the meeting where we signed the deal, dressed in a blazer I'd bought specifically for the occasion, and watched Marcus shake hands with their CEO. Afterward, he turned to me. "We just changed your life, Muriel. You know that, right?" Within a year, we were expanding rapidly. We hired a sales team, a customer service department, and more developers. My title changed from junior developer to chief technology officer. My salary went from $55,000 a year to a base of $240,000, plus equity and profit sharing. Marcus made me a full partner, and suddenly, I went from living paycheck to seeing revenue shares that made my head spin. The software took off in ways I'd never imagined. We expanded beyond retail into restaurants, warehouses, even hospitals managing medical supplies. Every new sector we entered, inventory IQ proved its worth. The algorithm I'd written in my bedroom, running on hope and caffeine, was now processing millions of data points daily for hundreds of companies. I hired a financial advisor, a sharp woman named Diane, who'd been recommended by Marcus. She sat me down in her office, looked at my accounts, and smiled. Muriel, do you understand how much money you're making? I know it's a lot, I said, still not quite grasping the reality. You're going to be a millionaire before the end of the fiscal year. Probably a multimillionaire if this growth continues. We need to talk about investments, tax strategies, long-term planning. Multimillionaire. The word felt foreign, impossible. I'd spent so many years counting pennies, choosing between buying groceries or putting gas in my car. That wealth seemed like a language I'd never learned to speak. But Diane taught me. We created an investment portfolio diversified across stocks, bonds, and real estate. She helped me understand tax advantages, retirement planning, and wealth preservation. Every decision was strategic, every dollar put to work. Money isn't just about having it, Diane explained during one of our sessions. It's about making it work for you. You've earned this, Muriel. Now, let's make sure it grows. 2 years after that dinner, where my parents told me I didn't deserve help, my bank account had 7 figures in it. I paid off every cent of my student loans in a single payment, watching the balance drop to zero with a satisfaction that was almost spiritual. The $43,000 that had hung over me like a cloud was gone, erased, no longer a chain around my future. I remembered the overnight shifts at the grocery store, scanning items at 3 in the morning while studying for exams during the slow periods. I remembered choosing the cheapest instant ramen, skipping meals to afford textbooks, wearing shoes with holes in them because new ones weren't in the budget. Every sacrifice had led to this moment. I had invested wisely, diversified my portfolio, and worked with a financial advisor who helped me make smart decisions. Then I bought a house. Not just any house, a custom-built contemporary masterpiece in Evergreen Heights, the most exclusive neighborhood in our city. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen that would make a chef weep, and a backyard with an infinity pool overlooking the city. The price tag was $5.3 million, and I paid 40% down in cash. Finding the house had been an experience in itself. The realtor, a Polish woman named Catherine, who worked exclusively with high-net-worth clients, had been skeptical when I first contacted her. I was 29 years old, showed up to our first meeting in jeans and a blazer, and asked to see homes in the multi-million-dollar range. "Do you have pre-approval from a lender?" she'd asked, her tone professional but doubtful. I handed her a letter from my bank. Her eyebrows rose steadily as she read it. "I see. Well then, let's find you a home." We looked at 12 properties over 3 weeks. Each one was impressive. Sprawling estates, historic mansions, modern architectural marvels. But nothing felt right until Catherine showed me the contemporary in Evergreen Heights. It was still under construction, about 60% complete. We walked through what would become the living room, and I looked out at the wall of windows facing the city below. The builder, a renowned architect named Thomas Chen, was on site that day. "This is the crown jewel of the development," he explained, walking us through the skeleton of rooms, floor-to-ceiling windows throughout, smart home integration, geothermal heating and cooling. The infinity pool will seem to pour right into the city skyline. "Can I make changes to the design?" I asked, running my hand along an exposed beam. Thomas and Catherine exchanged glances. "Depends on the changes," Thomas said carefully. "We're pretty far along. The master suite. I want the bathroom expanded, and the home office, I need it bigger. Much bigger, 20 by 25 feet minimum. Built-in bookshelves, specialized electrical for multiple workstations, soundproofing." Thomas pulled out the blueprints, spreading them across a makeshift table of sawhorses and plywood. "I can make that work, but it'll add to the cost and the timeline." "How much and how long?" He did some quick calculations. Another $250,000, and we're looking at 4 more months of construction. I didn't hesitate. "Do it!" Catherine looked at me with newfound respect. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." The house was everything I'd ever dreamed of, and nothing I'd ever expected to achieve. Over the following months, as construction continued, I visited the site weekly. I watched my vision take shape, The expanded master bathroom with a soaking tub overlooking the city, the home office that would become my sanctuary, the gourmet kitchen with professional-grade appliances I was slowly learning to use. I chose every finish, every fixture, every paint color. The designer Thomas connected me with, a brilliant woman named Sophia, had impeccable taste but always deferred to my preferences. "This is your home," she'd say whenever I second-guessed a choice. "It should reflect who you are." Who was I? For the first time in my life, I got to decide, without anyone else's input or judgment. I chose deep blues and warm grays, clean lines and natural materials. I selected furniture that was comfortable rather than just impressive, art that spoke to me rather than what was trendy. The day I got the keys, Thomas personally handed them to me in the completed living room. "It's been a pleasure working with you, Muriel. This house, it's something special." Floor-to-ceiling windows, smart home technology throughout, a home office that was bigger than my first apartment. I stood in the empty living room the day I got the keys and cried. Not sad tears, but the kind that come when you realize you've actually made it despite everything. The move-in process was surreal. I hired professional movers who handled everything with a care I'd never experienced. My few belongings from the apartment, my secondhand couch, my garage sale dining table, my clearance rack clothes, looked absurd in the massive space. "We need to get you some furniture," Emma said, standing in the cavernous living room. So we did. I hired Sophia to help me furnish the place, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look at price tags. That leather sectional I'd always wanted? Ordered. The dining table that could seat 12? Perfect. A bed that cost more than my first car? Why not? But even as I filled the house, I was careful. Dr. Chen's words echoed in my mind during a session after I'd moved in. Wealth can heal some wounds, but it can also create new ones if you're not careful. Don't let success define you the way your family's rejection once did. I made sure to stay grounded. I still drove my reliable but modest Honda Accord, though I did trade it in for a new one. I still shopped at normal grocery stores, still met Emma for our weekly lunch dates at casual restaurants. The house was a symbol of my success, but it wasn't my identity. Ryan and I met 2 months after I moved in, at a tech conference in Seattle. I'd been asked to speak on a panel about innovation and inventory management, something that still felt surreal. After my presentation, he approached me at the networking reception. "That was impressive," he said, offering his hand. "Ryan Cooper. I'm a software engineer at Dataflow Systems. Muriel Harris, and thank you." He was tall, had kind eyes, and when he smiled, it reached those eyes in a way that felt genuine. We talked for an hour, our conversation flowing from work to books to the terrible coffee being served at the conference. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked as the reception wound down. "Somewhere with better coffee." I hesitated. Dating had never been easy for me. The few relationships I'd had in college were brief, hampered by my work schedule and emotional unavailability. Opening up to someone meant risking rejection, and I'd had enough of that to last a lifetime. But something about Ryan felt safe. "Sure, I'd like that." Dinner turned into a late-night walk through Seattle. We talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our failures. When I mentioned being estranged from my family, he didn't pry, just nodded with understanding. "My parents divorced when I was young," he shared. "My dad wasn't great about staying in touch after. I get it, the complicated family thing." By the end of the conference, we'd spent every free moment together. Long distance was hard. He was based in Portland, but we made it work. Video calls, weekend visits, constant texts. He was supportive of my work, interested in my ideas, and never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. 6 months into dating, I invited him to see the house. I'd been nervous about it, worried it might seem like I was showing off, or that the wealth gap between us might create issues. I picked him up from the airport, and we drove toward Evergreen Heights. "So where exactly do you live?" he asked, watching the neighborhoods get progressively nicer. "You'll see," I said, pulling up to the gate. When the gate opened and we drove up to the house, his jaw dropped. "Muriel, is this yours?" "Yes." He was quiet as we walked through, taking in the soaring ceilings, the view, the clear evidence of success. I held my breath, waiting for judgment, for resentment, for something to go wrong. Instead, he turned to me in the living room and smiled. "This is incredible. You built this life yourself, didn't you?" "Yes." "I'm proud of you," he said simply, and pulled me into a hug. Those 4 words, "I'm proud of you," broke something open in my chest. My parents had never said them, not once in 30 years. But this man I'd known for 6 months said them without hesitation, and I believed him. I didn't tell anyone from my old life. Why would I? They'd made it clear I was on my own. Emma helped me move in along with my boyfriend Ryan, who I'd met at that tech conference 8 months earlier. He was a software engineer at a major company, kind, supportive, and completely uninterested in my family drama. Life was good, better than good. I had work I loved, people who appreciated me, and a home that was entirely mine. The hole where my family used to be had healed over, leaving a scar, but no longer an open wound. Then, 3 weeks ago, my carefully constructed peace shattered. I was in my home office on a video call with a client when my doorbell rang. I ignored it. I had a smart doorbell that recorded everything, and I could check it later. But then my phone started buzzing. Unknown number, then another, then another. After my meeting ended, I checked my doorbell footage. My stomach dropped. It was Madison. She was standing at my front gate, looking up at my house with her mouth literally hanging open. She tried the intercom, peered through the gates, even attempted to take pictures over the fence. Then I listened to my voicemails. "Muriel, it's Madison. I was driving through Evergreen Heights with some friends, and I saw your name on the mailbox. This can't be right. Call me back." The next one was angrier. "Muriel, what the hell? How do you have a house here? These homes are worth millions. Call me back right now." The third wasn't from Madison. It was my mother, and her voice was shrill with emotion. "Muriel Marie, your sister just called me crying. Absolutely hysterical, saying you live in a mansion. She said, 'Why does she have that when we gave her nothing?' You need to call us immediately and explain what's going on." I listened to all 7 voicemails, each one more demanding than the last. My father's voice appeared in the 6th one, gruff and confused. "Muriel, this is your father. We need to talk about your situation. This is family business. Call us back." I deleted them all without responding, but they didn't stop. Over the next week, I received 43 calls from various family members. Apparently, Madison had started a whole campaign. My Aunt Cheryl called, my Uncle Tim, even my grandmother. The messages ranged from concerned to congratulatory to downright accusatory. My grandmother's message was particularly telling. "Sweetheart, your mother is beside herself. She can't understand how you could be doing so well without telling the family. She feels betrayed that you've kept this success a secret. Please call her." Betrayed. The word almost made me laugh. They betrayed me my entire life. But now that I had something they wanted to be part of, suddenly I was the bad guy for not sharing. Emma came over with wine after I told her what was happening. "So, what are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said, pouring us both generous glasses. "I'm going to do exactly what they taught me to do. Live my life without them." "They're going to keep trying," she warned. She was right. The calls continued. Then came the letters, forwarded from my old address. My mother's handwriting on the envelope made my hands shake, but I read it anyway. "Muriel, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're your family. Yes, we had a disagreement 2 years ago, but this is ridiculous. Your sister is heartbroken, thinking about how you're living in luxury while she and Brett are struggling in their starter home. Your father's dealership hasn't been doing well, and we could really use your help. Surely with all your success, you can spare something for the people who raised you. We made mistakes, but family forgives. It's time to come home and be part of this family again. Madison's pregnant, and she wants her baby to know their aunt. Love, Mom." I read it 3 times, each time finding new layers of manipulation. They wanted me back now that I had money. Madison was struggling in her starter home, the one they probably helped with the down payment for, while living off my success, and the pregnancy announcement used as bait to reel me back in. I wrote a response. I wrote it, rewrote it, and revised it a dozen times. Finally, I settled on something that said everything I needed to say. "Patricia, you're right about one thing. We had a disagreement 2 years ago. You told me I didn't deserve any help. You told me I wasn't the daughter you could be proud of. You gave Madison $80,000 and gave me the clear message that I was worth nothing to this family. So I listened. I built a life where I don't need your help, your approval, or your presence. I deserve the success I've earned through my own hard work, something you never believed I was capable of. You feel betrayed that I kept my success secret. I kept nothing secret. I simply don't have a relationship with you anymore. You're not entitled to updates on my life, my finances, or my happiness. Madison's baby will have plenty of family, but I won't be part of that picture, just as I wasn't part of the family picture you made clear I didn't fit into. Don't contact me again." Muriel. I sent it certified mail so I'd know she received it. The confirmation came 3 days later. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone rang within an hour of the delivery confirmation. My father's number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail he left was memorable. How dare you? His voice was shaking with rage. How dare you throw our generosity back in our faces? We gave you a roof over your head, food to eat, and this is how you repay us? You're a selfish, ungrateful brat, and you don't deserve the success you've stumbled into. Mark my words, Muriel, you'll fall. And when you do, don't come crawling back to us. I saved the voicemail not because it hurt, though it did a little, but because it was proof that I'd made the right decision. Ryan found me sitting in our home theater, staring at nothing. You okay? He asked, sitting beside me. They called me selfish, I said. After everything, I'm the selfish one. He pulled me close. You know what I think? I think they're terrified. They're terrified because they can't control you anymore. They can't use love or money or guilt to manipulate you. You're successful without them, happy without them, and that destroys their narrative that you needed them. He was right. My success had demolished the story they told themselves, that Madison was the capable one, the one who deserved investment, while I was the problem child who would never amount to anything. 2 days ago, something changed. Emma called me, her voice tight with concern. You need to see this. She sent me a screenshot. Madison had posted on Facebook and someone had shared it publicly. The privacy settings must have been wrong because it was spreading. The post read, some people forget where they came from. My sister has millions while her family struggles, and she won't even take our calls. Money changes people, and not always for the better. Praying she remembers what family means before it's too late. The comments were a mix of support for Madison and people asking for more context. Several commented things like, there's always two sides to a story. Maybe she has good reasons. But what got me was my mother's comment. We gave her everything growing up, and this is how she repays us. Some children just don't have gratitude in their hearts. I stared at those words. Everything. They'd given me everything. According to her revised history, the bus pass instead of a car was everything. The student loans instead of paid tuition were everything. The constant comparisons and disappointments were everything. I made a decision. I was done being silent about my side of the story. I created a new Facebook account under my full name. I only made one post, and I made it public. I wrote, I've been asked by mutual acquaintances why I don't speak to my family. Here's the truth. 2 years ago, my parents gave my sister $80,000 for her wedding. When I asked if they could help with my student loans I'd accrued because, unlike my sister, I received no financial support for college, I was told, you don't deserve any help. My father said I'd always been the disappointing child. My mother said I'd never appreciated what they'd done for me. So I took their advice. I stopped asking for help. I built a successful career in tech, created software that's now used by hundreds of companies, and yes, I bought a beautiful home with money I earned myself. I didn't keep my success secret out of spite. I simply don't have a relationship with people who made it clear I wasn't worthy of their love or support. Now that I'm successful, they want back in. They feel entitled to my money, my time, and my forgiveness. But here's what I learned. You can't pick and choose when to be family. You don't get to tell someone they're worthless and then demand they share their worth with you. You don't get to skip the investment and claim the returns. To those saying I should forgive because they're family, they had 18 years to treat me like family. They chose not to. I'm simply respecting the boundary they established. I'm successful, happy, and surrounded by people who loved me when I had nothing. That's all that matters. I posted it and closed the laptop. Whatever happened next, at least the truth was out there. Within 6 hours, the post had been shared 2,000 times. By the next morning, it was over 10,000. People were finding Madison's post and commenting on it, asking why she'd left out the part about the $80,000 and the you don't deserve help conversation. My mother tried calling from a number I didn't have blocked. I answered this time. How could you? She hissed before I could even say hello. How could you air our private family business like that? Do you know how humiliated we are? Your father's customers are seeing this. Madison's friends are asking her about it. You made a public post calling me ungrateful, I said calmly. I simply provided context. We never said those things. You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything, Patricia. You said exactly what I quoted. You want to know what's really humiliating? Having your parents tell you to your face that you're not worth helping. That's humiliation. She was crying now. We made mistakes, but you're our daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to, I said quietly. It used to mean everything. But you taught me that love in this family was conditional, based on being the right kind of daughter, making the right choices, being someone you could be proud of. I was never going to be that person for you, so I became that person for myself instead. Muriel, please. Goodbye, Patricia. I hung up and blocked the number. Ryan was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in. He looked at me, reading my expression. How do you feel? I thought about it, really thought about it. Free, I finally said. I feel free. The posts eventually died down. My family stopped trying to contact me, probably too embarrassed after their own behavior became public knowledge. I heard through Emma, who heard through a mutual acquaintance, that my father's dealership was actually doing fine, that his claim about struggling was a lie to manipulate me into helping financially. Madison had her baby 3 months ago. I know because my grandmother sent me a birth announcement to my office, having somehow found the address. I looked at the picture of the baby, a little girl named Sophie, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a distant recognition that somewhere out there I had a niece I'd never meet. I sent the announcement through the shredder and went back to work. Last week I got engaged. Ryan proposed during a weekend trip to the coast, and I said yes without hesitation. We're planning a small ceremony, just close friends and the family we've chosen for ourselves. Emma will be my maid of honor. Ryan's parents, who've treated me with more kindness in 2 years than my own parents did in 28, will walk me down the aisle together. The wedding will cost whatever we want it to cost because we're paying for it ourselves. There's freedom in that, in knowing that every choice is ours alone, unburdened by obligation or guilt. Sometimes late at night, I wonder what would have happened if they'd just said yes that day, if they'd helped with even a fraction of what they gave Madison. Would I still have been driven to succeed so dramatically? Would I have stayed in their lives, settled for less, never pushed myself to create something extraordinary? I'll never know. But I do know this. The rejection was the best gift they ever gave me. It forced me to bet everything on myself, and I won. My house isn't just a building worth $5 million. It's proof that I was always worth more than they could see. Every room, every window, every carefully chosen detail is a testament to the person I became when I stopped waiting for their approval. Madison drove past my house and called our mother crying, asking why I had that when they gave me nothing. The answer is simple. I have this precisely because they gave me nothing. Their absence created the hunger that fueled my success. Their doubt became my determination. Their rejection became my redemption. I don't hate them anymore. Hate requires caring, and I've moved beyond that. They're just people who made choices, and I made different ones. Their losses aren't my burden to carry. Emma asked me last night if I'd ever regret cutting them off. I looked around my home office, at the life I built, at Ryan planning our wedding in the next room, at the career that challenges and fulfills me. No, I said, I don't think I will. Some people spend their whole lives trying to prove themselves to family who will never see their worth. I spent 2 years proving it to myself instead, and that's made all the difference. The lights of the city sparkle below my infinity pool every evening, a reminder of how far I've come from that dinner table where I was told I didn't deserve help. They were right, in a way. I didn't deserve their help. I deserve so much better, and I found it on my own. That's my story. That's how I went from the disappointing daughter to the woman with the $5 million house, not through revenge, not through spite, but through the simple act of believing in myself when no one else would. And honestly, that's the best payback of all.